Question. Richard had a question about his high blood pressure. Actually, a couple of people have had a question about their high blood pressure and how to lower it naturally or holistically. And I'll tell you what, the easiest way is to effectively change what the biggest problem is. The biggest problem is going to be the type of food you eat, how much food you eat, and when you eat, in addition to lack of activity. Lack of activity I've talked about in other videos. For this, we're going to talk about food. You can go to the bookstore, used or new bookstore, and if you go to the section on nutrition, weight loss, you'll see just shelves of different authors and their versions to losing weight. And usually if you lose weight, it translates out in the long run to lowering blood pressure, lowering cholesterol, lowering sugar. The problem is sustainability. So a lot of people don't even buy the book, and they just do the shortcut with the, I guess, the Cliff Note version by watching a couple things on YouTube or getting shortcuts. And shortcuts don't work. They're not sustainable, I should say. A lot of people will lose weight within the first 2 weeks, and that usually is because they're cutting out carbohydrates. They're making the first obvious changes with cutting out volume or carbohydrates. When you cut out volume of carbohydrates, usually you'll take or lose a lot of water. Carbohydrates attract water versus proteins and fats. And yeah, anyway, so that's a success. The question would be keeping it or translating into longevity. No matter which author you choose, you have to choose one that has been around for a while. And I tell you what, your tax dollars and mine pay for what's called the National Institute of Health. And it's a governing body that looks over studies and makes sure that research is done in the hopes that the average American will be healthy. And there's something called the DASH diet. And this is a black and white. My printer is black and white, so I don't have a nice color copy. But this was a 20-page pamphlet of what's available online, DASH. So if you Google search DASH diet and then NIH, you'll come up with this. You'll also have National Institute of Health's ideas and descriptions of the DASH diet. And it's really easy. It's dietary approaches to stopping hypertension. That's what it stands for. But they talk about breaking food down into servings, essentially. Servings of vegetables, servings of fruits, servings of whole grain, meat, poultry, and fish, and then some fats, and then actually it talks about sweets too, and limiting. And then there's mention of sodium. And I think that sodium, it could be a good thing because it gives us flavor, but it could also be a bad thing because there has been an association between salt, excessive amounts of salt, and high blood pressure. And that's usually what we do in the hospital. If we find somebody with hypertension, heart disease, stroke, we usually give them a low-salt diet. And if you've ever tasted low-salt diet in hospital, it tastes like you're eating cardboard. Because salt and spice makes food palatable, makes you want to engage it. Chemicals do that too, but if you don't, or if you haven't ventured into using different spices and you're only used to salt and pepper, you're going to be salting everything. That's why average American diet is a little bit lacking. If you go to different countries, you'll get the flavor of the food. You'll see how spices actually enhance flavors, and you don't even have to touch salt. But again, this is average American. And if you indulge in too much salt, studies have shown that you'll have high blood pressure. So the first key is lowering salt. But the next key is to still be in love with your food and have that reward when you taste it. So you really have to read labels, and there are nice sections on reading labels, getting used to reading labels, getting used to reading how much sodium you should be on. It even gives you a breakdown of what kind of foods you should take advantage of as far as servings per day. One portion of the handout actually gives you a little bit of a diet diary to fill out. And I usually ask my patients to do a 2-week diet diary so they can bring in what they eat on average, so I can break it down. When I review cholesterol, sugar, other things, I will usually look at, before going straight to pills and supplementing, I usually look at the food and try to change around what's missing. Average American diet's usually missing fiber, usually missing protein, usually way too much in the carbohydrates and bad fats. So just adjusting that in the diet when I see patients and advise them, usually gets them to lose the need to take in large volumes. And with that, again, you lose weight. Now, sustainability is always an issue, and I think it does give you some, this usually gives you a little bit of a breakdown on how to initiate. It's up to maybe going the next step and sustaining it. But that might be where you seek out a health coach, or you look at a group to keep you alive and in the game for the long run. Sometimes it has to be stepwise approach. You make the first change, you lose a little bit, then you anticipate the next change so you can keep on with that enthusiasm that you gain, versus going head first into this massive weight loss, cutting out. I had a patient yesterday that said that they were taking 500 calories a day, and that is not sustainable. That's honorable. I think there are some people that go through the HCG diet, and they take a hormone to stop or decrease their urge to eat, but then they cut back down aggressively to a minimal caloric intake, and that might help you lose, but is not sustainable. And if you're training, you're going to hit the wall, because your muscles and your brain, your regular body systems do need a little bit of calorie or macronutrient per day, and when you cut down aggressively, you're going to rob your systems of what they need as far as building blocks. So that is not sustainable. It's honorable, but in the long run has to be a well-balanced lifestyle, and that always starts with some form of nutrition. So hopefully this helps. Good question, Richard. There's more information out there. If you'd be very surprised at what our tax dollars pay and what NIH has available. So check it out. Just another version. There's other authors that are out there, but this is just so easy to get, very practical, and I think it's a nice step for beginners.